You switched to a high-yield savings account. You did the research. You found out that regular savings accounts at big banks were paying next to nothing, 0.38% on average. So you made the move, found one paying 4.5%, felt smart about it, told a few people, and you are still getting taken. Not as badly as the person who never switched, but the bank is still making far more off your money than they're paying you. And the thing they're doing with your deposit, you can do it yourself. Cut the bank out entirely and keep the full yield. Sarah has $20,000 in a traditional savings account at a big national bank. She earned $76 in interest last year. Her bank used that same $20,000 to earn over $1,200. She got $76. They kept the rest, and she thanked them for it. Marcus switched to a high-yield savings account paying 4.5%. He's earning $900 a year. He thinks he solved the problem. He didn't. He just got a better seat in the same machine. Today, we're going to show you exactly what your bank does with your money, why even the high-yield account is still a middleman taking a cut, and the 3 specific moves that cut the bank out completely, so your idle cash starts working for you the way it's been working for them. Welcome to WealthSimplify, where we make money simple enough for anyone to understand. Stick around and watch this whole video, because if you skip even one part, you will miss something important. While you're here, consider subscribing and giving this video a like. It tells the YouTube algorithm that you're serious about improving your money, and YouTube will start showing you more relevant content like this video that actually helps you succeed. You found this video for a reason, so make it count. What your bank is actually doing with your money. Sarah did everything right. She saved 6 months of expenses. She keeps it in a savings account at a major national bank. She checks her balance every month and sees a small interest deposit. A few dollars here, a few there. It feels responsible. It feels safe. Her account pays 0.38% APY, the national average according to FDIC data. On $20,000, that's $76 a year, about $6 a month. Not enough to buy lunch. But here's what Sarah never thought about. What is her bank actually doing with that $20,000 while it sits there? She probably assumes it's just sitting in a vault somewhere, waiting for her. It isn't. The moment Sarah deposits money, the bank puts it to work. Not for her, for them. Here's the core business model of every bank in America. They take your deposit, pay you a fraction of a percent, and lend that same money to someone else at a much higher rate. The gap between what they pay you and what they earn is called the net interest margin. Right now, the average net interest margin for U.S. banks is 3.39%, the highest it's been since 2019. In real numbers, Sarah's bank paid her 0.38%. They earned an average of 3.39% on the money they lent out using her deposit. On $20,000, that's a spread of about $602 a year that the bank keeps. Sarah got $76. The bank pocketed $602 from the same $20,000. And that's just the average. Let's look at where the really wide margins are. Credit cards. The average credit card APR right now is 21%. Sarah's bank takes deposits like hers, pays her 0.38%, and turns around and lends that money to credit card holders at 21%. That's a spread of over 20 percentage points. Auto loans average around 7.5%. Mortgages around 6.8%. Personal loans around 12%. Every one of these products is funded in part by deposits like Sarah's, and every one earns the bank multiples of what Sarah receives. Then there's the treasury trade, and this one should make you pause. Sarah's bank takes a portion of her deposit and buys short-term U.S. Treasury bills, which are currently yielding around 3.6%. The bank earns 3.6% on Sarah's money and pays her 0.38%. That's a 3.22% spread on an asset that Sarah could buy herself. The bank is literally acting as a middleman between Sarah and the U.S. government and charging her over 3% a year for the privilege. Add in overdraft fees, ATM fees, interchange revenue every time she swipes her debit card, and the float the bank earns holding her money for a day or two before a transaction clears, and the picture is clear. Sarah's bank didn't hold her money. They rented it. They paid her $76 a year for the right to use her $20,000 however they wanted, and she thought she was earning interest. The high-yield trap. Now, let's talk about Marcus. Marcus is the person who already knew all of that. That's exactly why he moved his money to a high-yield savings account, paying 4.5%. On $20,000, he's earning about $900 a year. That's nearly 12 times more than Sarah. He did his homework. He made the switch. So what's the problem? Three problems, actually. Problem 1. That 4.5% might not be what Marcus is actually earning. A lot of high-yield accounts advertise up to a certain rate. That phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Some accounts use tiered structures, where the top rate only applies to the first $500 or $1,000. Others offer a promotional rate for the first 90 days, then quietly drop it. Marcus saw 4.5% in the headline. His effective rate might be lower, and he'd have to read the fine print to know. Problem 2. Tax treatment. Interest earned in any savings account, traditional or high yield, is taxed as ordinary income. Federal taxes plus state and local income taxes. If Marcus is in the 22% federal bracket and lives in a state with a 5% income tax, he loses over a quarter of his interest. His $900 becomes roughly $657 after tax. Problem 3, and this is the one that matters most. Marcus's high-yield savings account is doing the exact same thing Sarah's bank is doing. The bank still takes his deposit, lends it out, buys treasuries, and runs the same profit machine. The only difference is that a high-yield account shares a bigger slice of the yield with the depositor. But it's still a slice. The bank is still the middleman, and the middleman is still taking a cut. Here's the question Marcus never thought to ask. If the bank is using my money to buy treasury bills and earning 3.6%, why don't I just buy the treasury bills myself? Running the full comparison. Let's put three scenarios side by side on the same $20,000 over 1 year. Scenario 1. Sarah's traditional savings account at 0.38%. Gross interest earned, $76. After federal and state taxes, she keeps roughly $55. That's what a full year of responsible saving earns her. Scenario 2. Marcus's high-yield savings account at 4.5%. Gross interest, $900. After a combined federal and state tax rate of around 27%, he keeps about $657. A massive improvement over Sarah, but he's still paying full income tax on every dollar of that interest. Scenario 3. A short-term treasury bill ETF called SGOV. Its 12-month trailing yield as of early 2026 is around 3.95%, with a current 30-day yield of about 3.55%. On $20,000, that's roughly $790 to $710 in gross income. Now here's where it gets interesting. Interest from U.S. Treasury securities is exempt from state and local income taxes. That's federal law. So Marcus pays federal plus state tax on his $900. The SGOV investor pays only federal tax on their $790. After taxes, the SGOV investor keeps roughly $616 at the trailing yield, without any state or local tax. You might be thinking, Marcus still comes out slightly ahead in raw dollars, and at 4.5% versus 3.95% in this specific comparison, yes. But here's what that math misses. Marcus's 4.5% is an advertised rate that can change at any time without notice. The bank can drop it to 3.5% next month and send him an email about it. SGOV's yield tracks actual treasury bill rates set by U.S. government auctions. Transparent, market-driven. No bait and switch. Marcus's rate is subject to state income tax. SGOV's yield is not. In a high-tax state like California or New York, that exemption alone can close the gap entirely. And Marcus's high-yield account is still a middleman. SGOV cuts the bank out entirely. You're lending directly to the U.S. government and keeping the full yield, minus a 0.09% annual fee. On $20,000, that's $18 a year. The point isn't that one is always better than the other in every situation. The point is that Marcus never knew he had the option. He thought the high-yield savings account was the finish line. It isn't. It's a better seat in the same machine. How to cut the bank out entirely. Here's what to actually do, and it's simpler than most people think. First, keep your checking account. Don't close it. You still need it for daily spending, bills, rent, whatever flows in and out regularly. This isn't about changing how you spend money. It's about changing where your idle money sits. Second, identify your idle cash. That's your emergency fund, your savings buffer, money set aside for a down payment or a big purchase. This is the money sitting in a savings account earning next to nothing, while your bank earns 10 to 50 times more on it. That's the money we're moving. Third, here are your three options. Option Option 1. A Treasury bill ETF like SGOV. You buy it through any brokerage account, Fidelity, Schwab, Robinhood, whatever you already use. You buy it like a stock. The ETF invests your money in U.S. Treasury bills that mature in 3 months or less. Every month you receive a dividend. That's your interest income, currently yielding around 3.55% to 3.95%. When you need your money back, you sell during market hours. The price holds around $100 by design. Expense ratio 0.09% a year, and your distributions are exempt from state and local income tax. Option 2. TreasuryDirect.gov. This is the U.S. government's own website where you can buy Treasury bills directly. No middleman at all. No brokerage, no ETF, no expense ratio. You set up an account, link your bank, and buy T-bills at auction. They mature, and you get your money back with full interest. The trade-off? It's less liquid. You're committing to a maturity date, anywhere from 4 weeks to 52 weeks. But if you don't need instant access, this is the purest version of cutting the bank out entirely. Option 3. A Treasury-only money market fund, offered by brokerages like Fidelity, Vanguard, and Schwab. These funds invest in short-term government securities and offer daily liquidity. You can pull your money out at any time. Yields are currently competitive with high-yield savings accounts. And if you choose a Treasury-only fund, you get the same state income tax exemption as SGOV. But what about FDIC insurance? This is the first thing most people ask, and it's a fair question. FDIC insurance covers up to $250,000 per depositor per bank. If the bank fails, the government guarantees your money. That's a real protection. But think about what you're comparing it to. Treasury bills are debt issued by the same U.S. federal government that backs the FDIC. When you buy a Treasury bill, you're lending money directly to the U.S. government. The risk of default is essentially zero. The government has the ability to print money to repay its obligations. You're not trading safety when you move from a savings account to treasuries. You're moving from a government guarantee on your bank to lending directly to that same government. In many ways, it's more direct. The second objection: I need instant access to my money. Completely valid. That's why you keep your checking account funded for daily needs. For your emergency fund sitting in something like SGOV, yes, there's a 1 to 2 business day settlement period when you sell. But be honest with yourself. When is the last time you needed $20,000 in cash within 60 seconds? In a real emergency, 1 to 2 business days is almost always fine. And the difference in yield while you're waiting for that emergency to happen is hundreds of dollars a year. Let's bring it back to Sarah and Marcus. Sarah was responsible. She saved her money. She kept it in a bank. She checked her balance every month. By every rule she was taught, she was doing the right thing. And her bank made 16 times more off her $20,000 than she did. Marcus was informed. He made the switch to a high-yield account. He earned 12 times more than Sarah. He thought he cracked the code. But neither of them ever asked the real question. What is my bank actually doing with my money? And can I do it myself? The answer is yes. And now you know exactly how. Your bank takes your deposit, buys treasuries, lends it out at 7%, 12%, 21%, and pays you a fraction. The smartest move isn't finding a better savings account. It's asking why you need one at all for your idle cash. Keep your checking account. Identify the money that just sits, and put it somewhere that works as hard as your bank has been working for itself. If this video showed you something you didn't know was happening with your money, share it with someone who still has their savings in a big bank account. Subscribe to WealthSimplify for more videos like this. And drop a comment below. Are you still using a traditional savings account, a high-yield account, or have you already made the switch to treasuries? I will see you in the next one.